We are going to do a demo of installing an IBM Cloud Pack for data using Robin Storage. So as a pre-requirement, we need to have the OpenShift running, for which basically will be used to install Cloud Pack for data. So this is the link where a user can go ahead and plan for the cluster. This is the architecture of how the Cloud Pack data gets deployed. So for that you need an OpenShift cluster with three master or infra node and three or more worker node. So here a user can go through all the requirement that is needed uh, for the OpenShift cluster, and also make sure that so these are the different OpenShift versions that is available today for deploying Cloud Pack for data, and the compatibility matrix is shown here. On top of this, we also need to make sure that the internal registry server is set up correctly so that it can hold all the images that is required for the Cloud Pack for data. Okay, so you can go through this documentation and then set up the OpenShift cluster. Here I have set up uh, my OpenShift cluster, which is on version 4.6, and it is currently running on AWS Cloud, and I have three master nodes and three worker nodes running 4.6, which is Kubernetes 1.19. Now that our OpenShift cluster is up and running, we need to install Robin Cloud Native Storage, which is also we call Robin CNS. To download the bits for Robin CNS, you go to get.robin.io and you log in and go to download button, and here you pick your corresponding OpenShift version and the environment. For an example, here I have OpenShift version running on an AWS cloud, so I will pick this and then follow the direction to get the direct install files. Basically you download this tar file, and I have downloaded it here and I have all the bits here. Now once you have those bits available, just run the script install Robin, and then it's going to prompt the required parameters. We'll also make sure that the cluster you have has all the ports open that is required for installing Robin, and there are more prerequisites mentioned on this link. Once you make sure that all the prerequisites are met, just press enter, and since it's an AWS environment, it is going to ask for the user's access key and secret key, so provide the access key and secret key. So once you provide access and secret key, it is going to deploy Robin on your OpenShift cluster, and also it will install the Robin client on this cluster. Now that you started the installation, go ahead and look at the documentation, and this documentation will help you on installing on OpenShift, and after installation how to set up the how to apply your license and set up your Robin client. So this document will help doing that. Now let's validate. Now that installation has gone through, apply your license, and you can see what all hosts are added to the Robin. As you can see, Robin is added on all the host which is part of this cluster. Robin also goes ahead and discovers if any drives are attached to any of these hosts, and it will create the storage pool out of these drives. For an example, here there are two drives which are attached to two of the hosts, and it has basically added those drives in the storage pool. If you need more drives to be attached on this host, then you can use the Robin utility to do that, called Robin drive create. For an example, if you want to create a drive with AWS, these are the valid AWS disk type. For an example, let's say we want to create a GP2 drive, and let's say size 200 gig, and then we want to attach a drive on one of these hosts. So this utility will basically go ahead and talk to AWS. It will create a drive, and it will attach that drive to this particular host, and it will add the drive to the Robin storage pool once this job is been completed. While this job is going on, we can check the storage class is set correctly. Let's see, when we install the Robin also installs few storage classes here in Robin Immediate, Robin Apple 3. More storage classes can be installed and configured by, see, yeah. Here are the other parameters and options that Robin storage class can be created with, and the description of how these options work. Let's see if the job is done. Okay, the job is completed, and if you see Robin drive list, now the third drive is added to the storage pool. Now that the Robin storage is installed and configured, now let's move back to installing Cloudpack for data. So as you can see, we need to make sure that node settings are correct on your cluster. And once those are validated, make sure the image registry is correctly set up so that it can hold all the images required for Cloudpack data services. Then basically go to the IBM cloud and get the entitlement key, so to use this Cloudpack data for data, and also install the CPD CLI, which is the installation utility required for Cloudpack for data. When you get the utility and enter those files, you also will have a file called repo.yaml. So update your repo.yaml as per the documentation with the username and also the API key or the entitlement key that you received from IBM Cloud. Once you install the CPD CLI and set up your repo.yaml file on your OpenShift cluster, let's see how to install the control plane using Robin storage. To install control plane, first you need to fetch the necessary deployment files for your control plane. For that, the command is cpdcl adm, provide the repo YAML file, and name of the control plane assembly is light, say light, and default architecture is x86 64. Pick if you have any other architecture for your nodes. And I want to install the Cloudpack data in namespace with call name, and then I want to apply these changes to my cluster. So it is going to get all the required YAML files on to install the control plane on this cluster. Let's say you agree to the license. So this is going to set up all the required settings, or I'm going to update all the SCCs on the OpenShift cluster. Once it has executed successfully, now you are ready to install your control plane. Before that, for control plane install, you also need to add the correct SCC policy for your admin role. Now that we have applied all the security settings required for installing control plane for Cloudpack for data, now let's go ahead and install the cloud control plane for Cloudpack for data. To do that, we will use the same install utility, and it will require the repo that we already have, repo.yaml file. Then we will have Robin as a storage class here, and it also requires the details of the images, or the internal registry. To get those details, you can use the commands provided here. So here, by running the appropriate command for your OpenShift version, you will be able to find the details of your registry information that is required for the install command. You can see. Now for this OpenShift cluster, we have the details available here. As you can see, I'm using the install utility and providing storage class as Robin. And this is the detail that I got from those running those commands for my information about internal registry, and also the username for the registry is cubeadmin, and the password is you will be able to get the password doing oc who am I dash t, and this password will be should be provided here as a password. Once you run this command, this install utility is going to talk to IBM registry and going to fetch all those images from IBM registry to your local registry, and it will start installing the Cloudpack data for control plane. Accept the license, and as you can see, it is going to the IBM repo and trying to fetch all these images from there to your transferring to your local registry. Now let's wait for this install to complete, and then we can see if the installation is successful after the script is finished executing. Now as you can see, the installation of the control plane is finished successfully, and you can now access the UI for Cloudpack for data at this link. You can access the UI at this link, and the default username and password is admin and password is password or lower caps. And once you log in, you will be able to browse the catalog here, and in this catalog you can see there are many services available, for an example Watson Assistant, Discovery, Knowledge Center, Watson Studio. Now let's deploy the DB2 OLTP service on this Cloudpack data cluster. For that, all the requirements, you can go to services catalog. In the services catalog, you can go to data source services available, and in that, follow the documentation provided here in installing DB2. So first thing we need to do is we need to set up the DB2 cluster using the same settings. We need to apply the required permissions for DB2 OLTP. Let's do that. So here apply ADM command, same repo.yaml file, and assembly say DB2 OLTP, and this will download required YAML files, and it will apply required permissions on the cluster. Okay, accept the licensing terms. It will ask 2 times for DB2. Let's accept both. Okay, once it is created, let's move to Next step, here we need to basically set up a dedicated node for the DB2. Let's set up the dedicated node on this. Let's find a dedicated node in our cluster. For an example, in this, let's pick this as my dedicated node. So first stain that node with the label. Now let's drain the node. Now you might see some errors while draining, that there are some daemons set and then there are some local storage. We can add those flags so that draining will go ahead. So all these pods are getting evicted. Let's wait for it to drain completely. Okay, now that it is completed, let's uncordon the node. And finally, let's label the node. For the DB2 OLTP. Now once the node is dedicated for DB2, you can validate that this is the node that we chose as the correct label applied here. Now node is dedicated for DB2. Now let's go to the next steps. So since DB2 uses shared volume, we need to set up it for NFS v4.1 because 4.1 is being used for Robin. So let's set the host, dedicated host. So go to the host. In this case, my host is AWS. So we'll go to AWS host and create this file. Just create this file, save it, and then run this command on this file. Okay. So now we are ready to install the DB2 on this host. And this mod is installed. Now let's go back to our installer. Now we will use the same cpd CLI install utility. Example. So here we will use, instead of installing assembly light, we will just name it DB2 OLTP and have the storage class as Robin, and make sure you provide correct password for the registry. Let's fetch the password for registry again. Again, And this is going to install DB2 on this cluster. Let's wait for the installation to go through. Now that DB2 installation is finished successfully, let's go to the Cloudpack Data UI. Let's log in with username, default username admin, and password is password. And here you can see, you can go to the databases and you can click on create database, and as you can see a DB2 database is available here to be deployed. Let's click next. Let's have default, keep the database name blue data, configure the CPU and memory as per requirement, and then here keep the namespace Zen. And we want to have a separate storage for user and the backup. And Robin also supports 4K sector size, so optionally user can pick 4K or 512 KB. We'll pick 4K sector size. We'll keep the page size at 16 MB. And here user can choose what all different storage class available on this cluster. And here we will choose a storage class with replication 3, so that data is available on in case a disk or host fails. We'll keep the size default 100 gig. The user storage will keep the same. We'll have the storage class with replication factor 3, and the access mode will keep default read at once. And again here keep the size 100 gig. We also have an option to have a backup storage created, so that also will keep everything as default, and here we can pick replication 3 as well. Let's review the details and we'll finalize this. This will start deploying database DB2 on the OpenShift cluster that we just started the DB2 installation and successfully finished it. So let's wait for this DB2 instance to come up and running. As you can see, the DB2 instance has been created successfully, and we can see the details. And as you can see, this is the new DB that we just installed, and deployment ID is this. We can go back to our OC, and we can look at get pod, and we can grab for this deployment ID. And as you can see, this is a database instance that is up and running for this, and we can validate that the PVC for this database instance for backup and metadata and data has been created using Robin replication class, replication 3 storage class.